India is preparing for the biggest expansion of nuclear energy in its history, not by 10% or 50%, but by more than 1,000%. And now in a major strategic development, the United States of America has announced that it is expanding civil nuclear cooperation with India, with American companies already lining up to participate in what could become one of the world's largest nuclear energy programs in India, with India aiming for 100 gigawatts of nuclear energy by 2047. But why is Washington suddenly placing such enormous importance on India's nuclear sector? And why is New Delhi racing to build dozens of new reactors, secure uranium deals from around the world, and to open its nuclear industry to global investment after decades of restrictions? Because this is no longer just about electricity, it is about who will power the world's third largest economy over the coming next decades and who will help build that future. 1 gigawatt alone can power 2 to 3 million Indian homes. Now multiply that with 100 and all that in just 20 years. A significant indication of this new momentum came during the high-level roundtable discussion on India, which was held at Stanford University's Hoover Institution in the United States. The event brought together several influential American policymakers, including US Assistant Secretary of State S. Paul Kapoor, former US Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, and former US Ambassador to India David C. Mulford. During the discussion, Kapoor confirmed that the Trump administration intends to deepen cooperation with India in one of the world's most strategic sectors. He stated, quote, "Under this administration, US engagement in India is creating jobs at home and strengthening supply chains that are critical to both the United States and the region." But he further added, "We are expanding defense and civil nuclear cooperation, including adoption of trusted AI and other emerging technologies powering the economy." Now, these remarks are significant because they signal that the civil nuclear cooperation is becoming a central pillar of the broader India-US strategic partnership, alongside, of course, defense, advanced technologies like AI, and secure supply chains across the Indo-Pacific. And these are not merely diplomatic statements. Just a few months ago, a 20-member executive nuclear industry delegation from the United States traveled to New Delhi and Mumbai to explore investment opportunities in India's rapidly expanding nuclear sector. The US delegation was led by Maria Korsnick, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Nuclear Energy Institute, and included representatives from some of America's biggest nuclear technology companies, including Westinghouse Electric Company, Centrus Energy, the Clean Core Thorium Energy, and Curtiss Wright Corporation. According to reports, discussions focused on commercial partnerships, technology collaboration, and large-scale investment as India pursues one of the most ambitious nuclear expansions seen anywhere across the world. These American companies are also exploring partnerships with major Indian organizations, including the Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited, or the NTPC, Larsen & Toubro, Tata Consulting Engineers, and the Adani Group. Meanwhile, US Ambassador to India Sergio Gore recently described India's civil nuclear energy sector as a very big growth area over the next few years, adding that both the countries are pushing our civil nuclear sector partnership to new heights. Our news report on India-Pakistan tensions was ranking among the top 5 in Google News videos. I am Shobit Mittal. Do subscribe to Inconnect News for the most informative news content. But here's what makes this story even more remarkable. For years, many global nuclear companies wanted to enter India, but they could not. The biggest obstacle was India's own Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act of 2010. Now, while that legislation was designed to ensure accountability and protect citizens in the event of a nuclear accident, international suppliers viewed some of its liability provisions as a major commercial risk. As a result, despite the historic India-US Civil Nuclear Agreement, large-scale foreign participation and investment remained limited in India for years. But all that changed dramatically in 2025. The Indian government introduced the Sustainable Harnessing and Advancement of Nuclear Energy for Transforming India Act, better known as the SHANTI Act. The legislation marked a turning point in India's nuclear journey by opening the sector to significantly greater private participation and international collaboration, while supporting the country's long-term ambition to dramatically expand clean and reliable nuclear power generation. The impact was almost immediate. Following high-level discussions in New Delhi, reports indicate that around 30 American nuclear companies have expressed interest in partnering with India, signaling growing international confidence in India's evolving nuclear policy framework. But there's an even larger and bigger story that many people are missing. The United States is not investing billions of dollars in India and sending its leading nuclear companies to India simply because another energy market has opened. US is doing so because India's demand for electricity is expected to become one of the largest in the world, and nuclear power is rapidly emerging as one of the few energy sources capable and available of providing reliable, around-the-clock electricity at that large scale. Now, this in turn raises an important question. How did India go from decades of global nuclear isolation to now becoming one of the world's most attractive destinations for nuclear investment? And what exactly is New Delhi planning that has convinced both the Indian government and global companies that nuclear energy could become one of the biggest drivers of India's rise over the next several decades? The 2008 India-US Civil Nuclear Agreement, also known as the 123 Agreement, ended decades of India's isolation from global civil nuclear commerce. It opened access to international nuclear fuel, advanced technologies, and cooperation with countries including not only the United States but France, Russia, Canada, and now Australia. Nearly 2 decades later, India is now preparing to unlock the full potential of that historic agreement. Why? Because India is still the fastest growing global economy in the world top 50 and is still expanding at an extraordinary pace. And with it comes an equally enormous demand for electricity. Unlike solar and wind power, nuclear energy ensures 24-hour baseload electricity regardless of the weather conditions. It produces extremely low carbon emissions while generating massive amounts of reliable power, making it one of the few energy sources capable of supporting a rapidly industrializing economy around the clock. And this is why New Delhi has announced one of the most ambitious nuclear expansion programs anywhere the world has ever seen. India currently operates 24 nuclear reactors with an installed capacity of 8,780 megawatts, but the government's target is to increase nuclear capacity to 100 gigawatts as soon as 2047, an increase of more than 11 times of today's capacity. To achieve this growth, India is rapidly expanding construction across the country. According to recent reports, 10 new nuclear reactors with a combined capacity of 8,000 megawatts are currently under construction as we speak across Gujarat, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Haryana. At the same time, India plans to develop 5 indigenous small modular reactors or SMRs designed by the Bhabha Atomic Research Center, with the first units targeted for completion by 2033. India is also making remarkable progress in one of the world's most advanced nuclear technologies. At Kalpakkam in Tamil Nadu, India's 500 megawatt prototype fast breeder reactor achieved first criticality in 2026. Once commissioned, India will become only the second country in history after Russia to operate a commercial fast breeder reactor, a milestone that strengthens India's unique 3-stage nuclear program aimed at eventually harnessing the country's vast thorium resources, which are the world's largest. Indian scientists succeeded at a time when even the United States, France, Germany, and Japan abandoned their FBR projects. In other words, this is no longer just about building more nuclear power plants. India is now laying the foundation for long-term energy independence from global oil supply chains. And the world is taking notice. But what do you believe? Will nuclear energy power India's rise to become the top 3 global economy? Leave a comment, hit the like button, and subscribe to Inconnect News.